Case 1. Frances Hall. On October 10, 2013, Frances Hall was driving her Cadillac Escalade down a San Antonio highway at high speed. Her husband, Bill Hall Jr., was on his motorcycle ahead of her. And ahead of him? His mistress, in another vehicle. What happened in the next 10 minutes ended a 32-year marriage and made Frances Hall a convicted killer. Frances and Bill Hall Jr. were Texas trucking royalty. Together, they'd built Bill Hall Jr. Trucking, a major hauling operation moving gravel and construction materials across the state. Their marriage spanned 3 decades. They had children. They had a fortune. But by 2013, Bill was openly seeing another woman, Bonnie Contreras. The affair wasn't a secret. It was an active, ongoing relationship Bill made no real effort to hide. And Frances knew. On that October day, Bill was riding his motorcycle behind Contreras' vehicle on a stretch of San Antonio highway. Frances pulled up alongside in her Escalade. According to the prosecution, what followed was deliberate. According to Frances, it was an accident. She struck the motorcycle. Bill was thrown from the bike at highway speed and killed. Frances's defense was that she'd panicked, that she was confronting them about the affair, and that the collision was an unintended consequence of a hot pursuit she didn't think through. The prosecution argued it was rage, pure and simple, weaponized into 6,000 pounds of moving SUV. In 2016, a Texas jury convicted Frances Hall of murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. But here's where it gets remarkable. They also found she acted in sudden passion, a Texas legal concept that reduces sentencing for crimes committed in the heat of the moment. Her sentence? 2 years, the minimum. She was released in 2018. The psychology here is what researchers call relationship rage homicide, a category where the perpetrator doesn't plan to kill, but creates conditions where killing becomes likely. Frances didn't bring a weapon. She brought a vehicle and a decision to chase. The line between confrontation and murder dissolved at 70 miles per hour. In 2022, Frances was charged with a separate $9 million insurance fraud scheme involving the trucking company. The same instinct, to take what she felt entitled to, apparently never went away. Case 2. Sandy. 2 days before Christmas 2012, police entered a quiet Houston home and found a 52-year-old man dead in a closet, beaten and stabbed dozens of times. In another closet, his wife of 32 years was tied up, claiming she had no memory of what happened. Sandra Melgar said an intruder did this. The jury said she did. To this day, the case remains one of Texas's most disputed convictions. Sandra Melgar and her husband Jaime, known to everyone as Jim, had been married since their early 20s. Devout Jehovah's Witnesses, active in their community, parents of a grown daughter. By all outward measures, a stable marriage. On December 22, 2012, the couple went out for dinner, stopped at a CVS, and came home around midnight. According to Sandy, they got into the jacuzzi together. The dog started barking. Jim went to check. He didn't come back. Sandy says she went to her closet to change clothes, and then woke up bound, with no memory of what had happened in between. When police arrived, they found Jim in a separate closet, dead from blunt force trauma and over 30 stab wounds from a kitchen knife. They found Sandy tied up in another closet, a chair jammed against the door. Investigators were skeptical from minute one. The scene didn't match a home invasion. Nothing was stolen. Sandy's bindings were unusual, and forensic evidence pointed inward, not outward. It took 5 years for the case to reach trial. In 2017, prosecutors argued Sandy wanted out of the marriage, but feared excommunication from her religious community if she divorced. Murder, in their theory, was an exit she could survive socially. The defense pointed out the absurdity of the prosecution's timeline, that a woman in her late 50s had somehow overpowered her husband, inflicted dozens of injuries, staged a crime scene, tied herself up, and locked herself in a closet, all while leaving almost no forensic trace of the violence on her body. The jury convicted her of murder anyway. What makes the Melgar case psychologically fascinating isn't whether she did it. It's the question that haunts every controversial conviction. What does it look like when a 32-year marriage becomes inescapable? When religion, family, and identity all hinge on staying, what does the mind start to consider? Her family continues to fight her conviction. The case has been featured on 2020 and in podcast investigations. As of today, Sandy Melgar remains in a Texas prison. Case 3. Chacey Poynter. Robert Poynter was a decorated fire captain, a father, a man who, when his wife called and said she was stuck in the mud on a dark country road, dropped everything to go help her. 20 minutes later, he was dead, and his wife's first call after his murder wasn't to mourn him. It was a cover story she'd been rehearsing for months. Chacey and Robert Poynter married young. He was the older, established firefighter. She was the stay-at-home mother to his daughters. By outward measures, comfortable. But somewhere around 2015, Chacey changed. She lost over 100 pounds. She started going out without Robert, sometimes leaving their young daughters home alone overnight. She rebuilt her social life and started having affairs. By the prosecution's count, at least 4 men. One of them was Michael Garza. Chacey met him on Facebook in mid-2016 and began telling him a story she'd told the others. That Robert was abusive, that she was trapped, that she needed help. In April 2016, Chacey changed the beneficiary on Robert's life insurance policy. 6 months later, on September 9, 2016, she texted Robert that her Jeep was stuck on a remote country road in Roy's City. He drove out to help her. Garza was waiting in the dark. Robert was shot in the head as he stood next to his wife's Jeep. Chacey called 911, sobbing, performing, and told dispatchers a stranger had emerged from the dark and shot her husband for no reason. It took police about 2 hours of interrogation to break her. Among 10,000 text messages between Chacey and her lovers, prosecutors found a clear pattern of grooming Garza for murder. The 2019 trial revealed a textbook example of what forensic psychologists call instrumental manipulation, using sex, fabricated victimhood, and a curated emotional dependency to weaponize someone else into committing the crime you want done. Chacey never pulled the trigger, but prosecutors successfully argued she pointed the gun. The jury convicted her of murder. Her sentence, life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Garza was convicted separately. Robert Poynter's life insurance benefits, the entire reason he died, were ultimately split among his 3 daughters. Not Chacey, not Garza. The system she built her plan around didn't reward her at all. The next case is darker still, because this time, the manipulator didn't pick up a stranger online. She reached back into her past and weaponized a man who had loved her for 25 years. Case 4. Jennifer Faith. On the morning of October 9, 2020, Jaime Faith was walking his dog through his Dallas neighborhood when a stranger emerged and shot him dead in front of his wife. The shooter wasn't a stranger to her. He was a man who'd loved her since high school. In March 2020, as the world went into pandemic lockdown, they reconnected on social media. What started as nostalgic messages quickly morphed into a psychological trap. Jennifer began feeding Lopez a fictionalized version of her marriage, claiming that Jaime was beating, sexually assaulting, and terrorizing her. None of it was true, but Lopez, who still carried the weight of 25 years of feelings for his high school sweetheart, believed every word. For the next 7 months, Jennifer flooded Lopez's reality with a steady drip of fabricated trauma. She sent him photos of injuries she'd found online, tearful voice memos, and detailed descriptions of violence that never happened. By the time October arrived, Jennifer had successfully used the digital space to overwrite Lopez's moral compass. convincing him that the only way to save her was through a permanent, lethal solution. He drove from Tennessee to Dallas, waited for Jaime Faith to take his morning walk, and shot him in front of Jennifer. She performed grief perfectly, gave tearful interviews, organized the funeral, played the devastated widow on local news. Police found her out within months. Federal prosecutors took over the case because of interstate elements. In June 2022, Jennifer Faith pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. Lopez received a separate sentence. What makes the Faith case psychologically extraordinary is the duration of the manipulation. This wasn't a moment of passion. This wasn't even a 6-month grooming. What makes the Faith case psychologically extraordinary is the velocity of the manipulation. This wasn't a moment of passion, but it was a masterclass in rapid emotional radicalization. In just 7 months, Jennifer Faith managed a systematic construction of reality, building a fiction so absolute and exhausting that a Marine veteran with no criminal history was driven to cross state lines and commit murder. Forensic psychologists call this proxy violence, using another person's emotional bond to you as the weapon, while you remain at a careful distance from the act itself. It requires extraordinary patience and a complete absence of empathy for both the victim and the proxy. Jennifer Faith showed both. Lopez, by all accounts, still doesn't fully understand he was being used. Case 5. Brenda Delgado. On September 2nd, 2015, Dr. Kendra Hatcher pulled into the parking garage of her uptown Dallas apartment. A man stepped out of an SUV and shot her dead. The getaway driver would be caught within days, and the hitman within a month. The woman who hired them would become the 9th woman ever, and the first in nearly a decade, to be added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. Kendra Hatcher was 35, a successful Dallas dentist, and dating Ricardo Paniagua, a man Brenda Delgado considered hers, even though Brenda and Ricardo had broken up. Brenda Delgado was 33, also a dental hygienist by training, and obsessed. She tracked Kendra's movements. She bought binoculars to watch Kendra from across the street. She enlisted help, a friend named Crystal Cortez to drive, and Cortez's connection, Christopher Love, as the gunman. For weeks, the trio surveilled Kendra. They learned her schedule. They knew when she'd be in the parking garage. On the evening of September 2nd, Cortez drove the SUV. Love stepped out. Kendra Hatcher never had a chance to react. When Brenda realized police were closing in, she fled to Mexico. The FBI added her to its most wanted list. Mexican authorities apprehended her in 2016 and extradited her back to the U.S. on the condition she would not face the death penalty. Crystal Cortez took a plea deal and testified against Brenda. Christopher Love was convicted and sentenced to death in 2018. Brenda Delgado's trial came in 2019. She was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. The Delgado case is psychologically distinct from the others in this video because of how clean the planning was. There was no manipulation of a lover, no sudden passion, no fabricated abuse story. Brenda Delgado simply decided that the woman dating her ex-boyfriend should not exist, and organized a contract killing the way someone might plan a wedding. Forensic psychologists studying erotomania-adjacent obsession patterns point to cases like Delgado's as evidence that the inability to release a relationship, even one already over, can metastasize into something almost administrative in its violence. She didn't hate Kendra Hatcher. She didn't even know her. She just couldn't tolerate her existence in a space Brenda still considered hers. 5 women, 5 different psychological pathways to the same outcome. 1 state, 1 decade, and an unsettling pattern. What's striking about these 5 cases isn't what makes them different. It's what they share. None of them lacked options. None of them were truly trapped. Frances Hall could have divorced. Sandra Melgar could have left her religious community. Chacey Poynter and Jennifer Faith both manipulated other men into committing crimes they apparently couldn't bring themselves to commit alone. Brenda Delgado had already broken up with the man she killed for. Each of them had off-ramps. Each of them chose this instead. That's the pattern. Not poverty, not desperation. A specific psychological refusal to accept an ending of a marriage, a relationship, a life they wanted but didn't have. If you found this episode useful, hit subscribe. Next date, we're heading to Alabama, the next state. 5 more women, 5 more cases, and 1 more piece of the pattern. Which case shocked you most? Drop it in the comments.